Okay, so thank you for inviting me and thank you all for joining. And sorry about the delay. So my name is David Hendrix, and I'm the sole creator of the Byzantine Legacy, which is a project I created to provide accessible information about Byzantine sites. Of course, if you're familiar with it, you might know its primary focus is on Istanbul, where I now live. Today, though, I'm going to talk about my recent travels to Phrygia and Galatia, and sites within a couple hours of Ankara. Before I go into details about my travels, I want to briefly introduce the Byzantine Legacy, starting by showing some details about the website. The website showcases Byzantine cultural heritage, documenting various sites using photos I take, accompanied by plans, historic images, and text summarizing academic literature. The website now has over 25,000 views a month. The idea began when I visited Rome for the first time almost 10 years ago. While I was only there for a couple of days, I made a long list of places I wanted to see and spent the entire time exploring the city's historic monuments. I was finally in Rome, a place I had wanted to see since I was a child. At the time, I was living in Istanbul. The whole time I was exploring Rome, I kept thinking to myself, why haven't I done this in Istanbul yet? So in Rome, I decided I would search for the new Rome in old Istanbul. While I had already visited many places, I attempted to systematically explore Istanbul, hunting for Byzantine sites of the city. I soon realized it was not so easy, as accessible information is rather limited for the public. In many ways, the Byzantine legacy is really just an accident. My amateur research moved towards academic sources, and I thought others might be interested in what I was learning as well. And of course, with my photography, I could also visualize what has survived in the city. Here is a web page presenting an overview of the Byzantine churches of Istanbul, now mostly mosques. It is accompanied by a Google map I made, which has been viewed over 260,000 times. When I first made it, there's nothing like it online or anywhere else for that matter. Creating maps is an important step in providing accessible information. When you see all the buildings pictured side by side and on a map, the Byzantine heritage of Istanbul becomes much more obvious and much, much more impressive. Each church, now mostly mosques, but also church ruins and even some lost structures, has its own web page. So here you can see one example, the former Sergius and Bacchus, the little Hagia Sophia mosque, Küçük Hagia Sophia. I also have a web page on all of Istanbul's columns and triumphal monuments, which is also linked to a similar page on monuments in Rome. One of the things I try to do is make regional comparisons, not simply focus on a specific monument in isolation. Each of the monuments you can see here also has its own page. Unfortunately, the quality is quite varied on those. This slide shows a screenshot of the Twitter and Instagram accounts. As you can also see, there's a timeline at the bottom showing that there's a timeline and key numbers at the bottom of the slide. Social media is a key aspect of the Byzantine legacy. It now has over 200,000 followers on various platforms. Twitter is the biggest. Instagram is quickly becoming close to the second, quickly coming similar numbers. I also created a Flickr account where I upload my photo archive. I visited some key museums, as well as a large number of sites in Anatolia, Greece, and the Balkans. Many of my photos have been used in publications. Here's a map of sites I've visited so far. In the past couple of years, I visited several sites around the Black Sea, southern Greece, and Ankara. I just visited Lake Bafa area last week. I want to thank my partner, Elif Behan, for her help over the past couple of years. This talk would not be possible without her. There are three main aims of my project and three basic methods I use. First is to raise public awareness of cultural heritage sites. Social media is the main method I use. However, the website often comes up as one of the first results in Google searches. So for example, Sergius Sambakis Kuchukaya Sophia just showed is in the top 3, 4, 5. There are many monuments that literally my webpage or maybe one Turkish website is the only one who's presented it. Social media, maps, and the website all play a role in providing accessible information on sites. As I will discuss more about particular sites, it is often very difficult to find any information about sites unless you're a scholar. The website is the main method of providing an overview of academic research. Quite often the academic sources are mainly or only in Turkish for many sites in Anatolia. This leads me to ask some important questions I have to ask for the project. They come out of my experience in Istanbul. When I started exploring Istanbul and looking for its Byzantine sites, most sites did not have signboards. There is very little reliable information online, and it was very hard to find non-scholarly publications that helped me understand the site. First, I have to ask about accessible public information on cultural sites. These can be signs, maps, and information boards. I also look for publications for the general public. This can include tourist pamphlets, books, or websites that provide information for the general reader. I will discuss this site by site when I come to the details of my travels around Anatolia, around Ankara. These issues become even more complex for academic research. While academic publications are the ideal source for reliable information, it goes without saying, there's still a few questions one has to ask. What has been published? What languages of research? In many cases, certain monuments have only been surveyed or only mentioned in passing. In other cases, the research is very old, perhaps outdated, or even nothing has been done. For Anatolia, important work has been done by Turkish scholars, but is often not known outside of the country. This includes numerous surveys, serious architectural documentation, and of course, a huge amount of archaeological work. One aspect of my project is to help make local scholarship more accessible. Here's a map of some sites I recently visited in Phrygia and Galatia. Phrygia in particular is a rich region with Phrygian rock-cut structures, Roman cities, Byzantine rock-cut structures, and Seljuk mosques. As you will see, Galatia, Ankara province, might have some surprises for you, some of you as well. Even though tourism tends to focus on the Aegean, Mediterranean, or Cappadocia, Phrygia and Galatia do have well-known sites. Obviously, UNESCO World Heritage Sites have the most accessible information on many levels, from publications in multiple levels, multiple languages, and information on site and online. However, some sites like Gordian and Hattusha also have lesser known medieval phases. For example, there's a Middle Byzantine village with churches in the temple district of Hattusha. By the way, all the photos I'm going to show in this presentation, except for this one on Hierapolis Pamukkale, are photos I made last year. My travels were mainly made in August and September. I visited all of these sites by car with my partner who did the driving. The wooden Hipposa Mosque of medieval Anatolia was included on the UNESCO list last year. This list includes mosques in Sivrihisar, Afyon, and near Ankara Castle. The Great Mosque of Sivrihisar is particularly noteworthy for its numerous reused capitals and columns bases in the interior. Both Phrygia and Galatia have several Seljuk monuments. These are interesting in their own right, but also as a window into Turkification, Islamification of former Byzantine lands, and as a neighbor of the Byzantine Empire. In many cases, these monuments extensively use Roman and Byzantine marble decorations. Simply put, if you come across a Seljuk monument, it is a good idea to look for reused stones, known as spolia. Amorium is a relatively well-known site for Byzantinists. There have been multiple publications in multiple languages. However, the website previously developed for Morium is no longer maintained as it was linked to the Met in New York and no longer receives funding. So this is even something very seriously done can disappear if it doesn't continue to receive funding, which is a big problem for cultural heritage documentation online, digital humanities. As you can see, there's high quality information on site. There's also clear road signs and a pin on Google Maps, making it easy for anyone who wants to visit. Homer Kitabevi also published a book on Amorium in English and Turkish for the general reader. However, as you will see, I'm talking about my site visits, the quality and accessibility of information on cultural heritage sites widely varies for regions around Ankara. Kırşehir Museum has one of the best cultural heritage maps I've seen. In fact, it has two, one showing modern roads on the map, including one showing modern roads on the map, as you can see here. These maps show all the sites of the province, Oyuks, Tumalai, underground cities, Byzantine churches, Seljuk mosques, castles, and so forth. The museum also provides basic information on key monuments in the area. This region, of course, is better associated with Cappadocia. Interestingly, as I found out visiting there, Kırşehir Museum was funded in cooperation with the Japanese government, and there's even a Japanese research center in the province. Çeltikdere Church borders on Çeltikdere borders on 3 or 4 Roman provinces, including Galatia and Bithynia. This cross and square church has received decent scholarly attention from some of the Aegis, Robert Oesterheld, and others. It was functioning as a mosque until the 1950s. Interestingly, there are several rock-cut structures in the area, but they've never been fully surveyed. When it came to visiting the site, there was a road sign showing the way to the church, a trekking map on site, a pin on Google Maps, and a simple rusty old sign giving the name of the building and a general date. This is another cultural heritage map. Something is a little bit wrong with the thing. Anyway, this is in Sebenbolu. This is a cultural heritage map at the municipal restaurant near Rock Cut Settlement. From what I could see, it wasn't put up any other place. Unfortunately, it's not that helpful, as most places are not marked by road signs, and only some of the places are on Google Maps. One of the sites, including this on here that's very interesting, is the petrified forest. There are 2 rock-cut settlements in the area, which do have road signs. As far as I know, only Meral Ortaç has published on its rock-cut settlements. It is in Turkish with a short German abstract. I briefly want to mention one website with quality information. It is on Phrygian monuments with maps and English summaries of academic research made by Borak Bilgin. Tayfun Bilgin has also made a similar one on Hittite monuments. Both sites are well-researched, summarizing and citing scholarship. I found out they also made a Turkish site that gives all the different pre-Roman or pre-Hellenistic inscriptions across Anatolia mapped out with translations. Quite impressive work that they've done. Here's a map of the so-called Midas city, Yazilikaya in Eskişehir. While the information boards at Yazilikaya are quite informative, the lack of maps on the site makes it easy to miss much of what the site has to offer. This website fills that major gap, allowing for visitors to fully appreciate the site. It is clear its creator was well aware of this gap. Before even planning these trips, I came across an article by Seçkin Evcim giving an overview of Byzantine sites of Eskişehir. I want to thank him in particular because he's been very helpful on sources and giving feedback for this talk. Dr. Evcim did his doctoral thesis on rock-cut structures of Phrygia. In the first article here, you can see in the top left corner, he gave this article, he gives an overview of work done by different scholars on Eskişehir. Most of it has only been published in Turkish. I lost the mouse. Oh, that's why I lost it. And some other works you can see. Hospitals, 1971, published this, Highlands of Phrygia. It's a very, very excellent book for its time, really richly photographed and made in 1971. And also, I used Philip Nieuwenhuis and Ali Vardar's article, which I'll discuss more later as well for this, especially for the Ankara area. One interesting example in Eskişehir, the church ruins at Bashara, first published in Turkish by Alp and Çağlar, and later in English by Dr. Alp. Here you can see plans of the various phases of both churches. It's cutting off from the top. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, the ruins of these two churches were excavated outside the village of Bashara in Eskişehir in the 2000s. One of the churches was a Middle Byzantine dome cross and square church with a side chapel. The other was originally a late antique three-aisle basilica, which was transformed into a dome basilica in the Middle Byzantine era. It was also used after the Seljuk conquest of the region. Evidence of a blacksmith workshop, for example, was discovered during excavations. It also has a remarkable octagonal baptistry with its marble baptismal font. When I went there were no road signs or Google Map pins. But interestingly, it is on Google Maps now. I'm not sure what happens. I found the churches by looking at Google Earth satellite view, as you can see here. There's no information signs there and no security. Many Roman and Byzantine pieces, such as tombstones, are scattered around the site. I try to be very careful about what I share and have consulted, for example, Dr. Kerem Altuğ of Istanbul many times about this issue. For vulnerable sites like this, I tend to not pin them on my maps. I definitely do not want to be someone who points out where to go find things and steal them and loot them. This mosque in Han Eskişehir is a quite mysterious building. There's Ottoman records about a church on the site, but it is unclear how much of the current building belongs to a reconstruction, a restoration, or a new structure built on the site with spolia of the former church. It has a cross plan, and this and other details, such as crosses and even a Greek inscription on the exterior, suggests a connection to the church, but further discussion is needed. There is an online article by Samuel Aegis on Islam Encyclopediası, and I've been told that Dr. Alp is working on a new publication. The information board on the site is only in Turkish and not very accurate. Strangely, its location is not marked correctly on Google Maps, and it has a wrong name as well. However, it is correct on Yandex Maps. The Phrygian highland is a rich, multi-layered region with numerous rock-cut facades from the Iron Age kingdom of Phrygia. There have been attempts to develop this area into a tourist route, the Phrygian Way, Phrygiolu. To be honest, I'm not sure how successful it has been. If you drive from Ankara to Istanbul or Ankara to Konya, for example, one might miss how absolutely diverse the region can be. It is full of numerous microclimates, including areas that are much like the famous landscapes of Cappadocia. It is also full of rock-cut structures, just like Cappadocia. Yazilikaya, the so-called Midas city, was an ancient Phrygian citadel in Eskişehir province. Its name comes from Phrygian writings on the so-called Midas monument, which probably dates to the first half of the 6th century BCE. It is only one of several rock-cut facades on the site and many more in the general area. It was apparently something like a sanctuary city for the Phrygian kingdom. There are also Hellenistic, Roman, and Byzantine remains there. On the bottom right corner, you can see a kind of rock structure. This was originally a Hellenistic monumental tomb that was recarved with multiple stories during the Middle Byzantine period. It was a settlement. There's also some Byzantine rock-cut churches in the area. Ayazin is a Middle Byzantine settlement with numerous rock-cut dwellings and churches in Afyon province. Interestingly, its name comes from a combination of the Greek word for holy and a Turkish word for cave. The site was an open, unfortified settlement located along the cliffs and the flat area north of a stream running through a valley. While the Turkish literature call it Ayazin, it is now called Ayazini on the signs. It is also labeled as Metropolis, which most scholarship, including Turkish, tend to suggest was further north. There are numerous rock-cut tombs, as you can see here, with the lions between the columns, mainly the most monumental Roman era. It is now something of a local tourist destination. As you can see, the old city was also restored. It seems that lots of local people are visiting it. It has maps and signs, sometimes in Turkish, sometimes in Turkish and English. One of the signs claims it has the oldest apartment in the world. There are many rock-cut dwellings and churches along the cliffs of Ayazin. A couple of Byzantine churches have fragmentary frescoes. One even has a prominent Greek graffiti made during the war a century ago. The largest church is located towards the western end of the settlement. It was a Middle Byzantine dome church with a cross square plan. It also has an inscription naming the Mother of God, which you can see here on the bottom left corner. To the east, there's a remarkable site. It's right off the highway, which definitely deserves more attention. Uchkan and Evcim have published on it both in Turkish and English. It has a welcome center, basically marking the beginning of the Phrygian Way. The site has a very short information board as well. And so Kirkenlair means 40 caves. It consists of an isolated rock with 3 layers of rock-cut structures. The middle level is the most interesting, as it has several churches connected by various passages and a huge number of crosses. Phrygia was famous for being as the home of heresies, including the Montanus in the kind of early Christian, late Byzantine era. And later on, some dualist sects were there as well, such as the Paulicians. It's been suggested by Sechkin and Evcim that this might be Sechkin and Uchkan, that it might have some connection to one of these heresies. As far as I know, they're the only ones who've taken serious look at this church and what it might mean. There's a collection of marble artifacts in front of the local municipality's wedding salon. There's no information about these pieces. It is believed that this site is being cut off now is a problem. Is there any way someone can help me with this mouse? Because just a second here. It's cutting off all the names and things on the top. You can see it online? Okay. It is believed that this is the site of a famous Roman imperial marble quarry in the classical era. The Pantheon, for example, in Rome, has marble from here. Marble products continue to make their way to Constantinople in the 5th and 6th century. The area is now has very intense marble quarrying. The whole area of Phrygia is full of marble pieces, often reused in buildings during the Seljuk period, for example. So, for example, Kumbet in Eskişehir has a wonderful turbe, as you can see in the top right corner. This has numerous Byzantine marble decorations that were reused in it. Interestingly, if you go to the site, there are 2 different maps for the same points in Kumbet, and the roadsides are very confusing. There are other noteworthy sites in the vicinity, including a Phrygian monument that was recarved during the Roman era. Afyon is the historic Akroinos. It has perhaps the most imposing castle of Anatolia. While the site is very ancient, apparently much of the current castle dates to the Seljuk era. The Great Mosque is included on the UNESCO Wooden Hippo-style Mosque of Medieval Anatolia. Afyon has a huge new museum that opened last year. Its gardens are another place to see Byzantine marble artifacts. It also has mosques with Byzantine spolia. Like Phrygia here, the museum has information on local farming and local food. The city also has an affordable cultural restaurant run by the municipality near the castle, where you can try local cuisine. I found out that Afyon is UNESCO City of Gastronomy, which I had no idea about until I visited. So now I'm going to briefly discuss lesser known sites in Galatia, in Ankara province. The region has several lesser known castles, rock cut settlements, which have been surveyed by Levent and Ali Vardar. This work is primarily in Turkish, though an English article was published a couple years ago sharing some of their survey work. I use this article when planning site visits in Ankara. Philip Niebluner, who authored this, has also done a lot of work in the region as well. This work focuses on sites along the Kerma River Valley, such as Alican Monastery. Unlike its name suggests, Alican Monastery apparently was a fortification defending the river valley. It is located less than 100 kilometers north of here. This picture is on the bottom left corner was taken with a zoom lens. You had to be a professional climber to get up there, but there are other castles in the area as well. Inonu Rock Cut Settlement is a huge multi-story complex. There are road signs for the site, which has a public park in front of it. The park was very crowded with Turkish families grilling meat, children swimming in the stream, and everyone enjoying picnicking last summer. Quite a few people made their way to the caves. As far as I understand, this has only been briefly surveyed and has never been seriously studied. The rock cut complex at Makemi Ajin is a site I visited twice now, once before researching the site. There are no information boards on the site, but there are road signs vaguely referring to the site. The nearby ferry chimneys also have road signs. There's a smaller rock cut complex nearby, but there are no signs indicating its location. The main site has 2 levels of rock cut caves. The lower level was used for agricultural purposes, while the upper level consisted of an elite residential complex. It seems that it belonged to a major agricultural estate dating to the Middle Byzantine era. One well-preserved cave has a barrel-vaulted ceiling and a wine press. The upper level, which overlooks part of the village, consists of several rock-cut structures that follow each other in a relatively straight line. It includes a reception, a chapel, and a kitchen. Its numerous wine presses suggest that the estate had sizable land holdings. This again is just located not too far off the highway north of here. One of the most spectacular sites I visited was Adaorin Castle. There are no road signs or information boards, but it is pinned on Google Maps. It has been suggested that it might be Pion, the fortified treasury of the Galatian king Diotorus. He was an ally of the Romans and ruled in the first half of the 1st century BC. Pion was later mentioned in the life of a local saint in the 7th century. The ruins of the fortification overlook a scenic canyon with a river. It was first built during the Hellenistic era. Its main gate, which was later walled up, dates to this period. You can see that the Hellenistic gate in the top right corner. It has 2 Byzantine phases, with the first one reusing the Hellenistic ashlar, the cut stone that you can see in the gate. The first date probably dates the period when Arabs began raiding Anatolia. The later phase could date to the 12th century, when the Seljuks invaded Anatolia. So this is a kind of just an overview of what I saw last year. Most of this for the first time. I never really spent much time here except visiting Ankara itself, museum, the castle, that sort of thing. And I visited many other sites, including Latmos, Lake Bafa last week, and many other places. So this is a project I built by myself, and it's getting increasingly difficult to keep up with everything since I'm the only one working on the website. I will have to add all of this Ankara-related material onto the website, researching and writing the web pages for each site. At the moment, I'm trying to figure out some way to perhaps turn this into an NGO or some sort of academically overseen and funded site. With help, I could do much, much more. I would also like this site to be in Turkish and Greek, for example, if it's possible. Furthermore, I view this project as something of a platform. With all the social media, I think I could also, this could do a lot to support and give publicity to other sites. But I kind of describe it something like this. This is a boat that I've made that's sinking. I'm doing my best to splash the water out and keep it from sinking. Yes, thank you very much for your patience and your time. Let me know if you have any questions.